Let's just jump right in. Microsoft LLMs for enterprise. I do want to start, as is traditional here in Australia, and acknowledge the land from which I speak today, which is the traditional custodians of this land are the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and I pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. Sovereignty was never ceded. So we're going to start with a little introduction and overview, and then we'll dive into the three offerings: Bing Chat Enterprise, Microsoft 360 Copilot, and the Microsoft ChatGPT for Enterprise that was just announced, I believe, a week or so ago. And then further considerations, we'll get into some of the Q&A and frequently asked questions around these things. And thanks to Paul for feeding those to me as he continues to get them, even some late entries last night. So just a quick introduction of myself. My day job, I work for Data3. They are both Microsoft and Cisco's largest partner in Australia. It's a massive opportunity for me and an absolute pleasure. They are truly a company with heart. And when I'm not at the day job, I haunt the internet as Mentis. The link in the top right there will take you to my profile. It has all of my socials on it, from LinkedIn to Twitter, as well as some of the upcoming learning labs like this one. Atman Academy, I didn't think this slide would build, but as a business, we're all about building educational experiences. It's how can we really immerse people in the information, get them excited about what they're learning, but also deepen their understanding by making it memorable. I presented at NFT Melbourne early this year, been doing some in real life workshops at charities and other local art galleries, some fun events, and have really started to expand my reach with online events like this one. So I did use ChatGPT a fair bit for this. I think you'd probably all be disappointed in me if I didn't. And one of the things I asked it was, what are the things in common about all of these offerings? What is it that, regardless of which of these chat solutions, you're going to find at an enterprise level, these do have in common? And so whether it's Bing Chat, Copilot, or ChatGPT for enterprise, Microsoft is really giving you that one-stop shop, the all-in-one solution. You're embedded, as is often the value proposition with Microsoft, within this ecosystem. You get certain security and compliance assurances by working with such a large vendor, and being so closely aligned to OpenAI, as it says, they are future ready, and they will continue to be, hopefully, at the front end of innovation. Questions, comments, everyone? As I said, please just jump off mute and jump in if you have any questions. So Bing Chat, I believe most of you have heard of Bing before. It's Microsoft's answer to Google. I will admit, when Bing first integrated OpenAI's chat, I was pretty disappointed in the results. More and more recently, I actually find that it's quite powerful and quite a valuable resource, and I find myself going back to it. I have the Bing Chat app now on my iOS phone, and more often now, if I just have to ask ChatGPT a quick question, I'll just launch the Bing Chat app, I find, rather than opening a browser, going to ChatGPT. It's just a little quicker, and it does get me good enough results for most things.
And Adam,
so yeah,
back to the chat. So I think it used to only, you had to have Microsoft Edge as a browser. I think they recently opened up to any browser.
I believe that's correct as well. But I'm not positive. I mostly, as I said, only
use. This is Tim, and I have used it. I have used it on Firefox and Safari. So, yep, you don't need to use Edge anymore.
Tim, did you have to log in as well, set up an account like you did?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. Just go to Bing.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. So Bing Chat Enterprise is really just integrating that same capability within your organization. So it can help with things like customer engagement, query resolution. It's what you could think of as a typical chat bot, but just really enhanced to serve your enterprise. It does the same things as ChatGPT, basically, and it is free as it's integrated into Bing.
And question, excuse me, one more question.
Yeah.
So you're saying Bing Chat Enterprise. I've actually heard companies use that term. Is that different than the kind of consumer anyone go to Bing? Do you know by chance?
That's my understanding. It's the same product, but internally you can basically build on top of it and integrate it into your data set so that it better understands your business. It's not just the generic Bing model at that point.
So we had, and the reason it comes, we had one company that a couple months ago, they hired us to do some chat GPT training, which we set up. But the week before we gave it, they came back and said, can you please mention Bing chat? Because we don't want employees asking for OpenAI premium. We want them to use and they use the same thing. They use Bing Chat Enterprise. So I don't know if it controlled issues there or if there's actually extra features.
Paul, so my understanding is that the enterprise versions of both ChatGPT and Bing Chat is the one where your data is protected within your own system and they don't use it for training. When you use public ChatGPT and you say, my name is Paul and I am 50 years old, that information is shared in the AI training. But the enterprise versions of it are completely locked and not used for training. That's the biggest difference. It lets people like Bank of America create their own version of the public ChatGPT. Do correct me if I'm wrong, but when I read the press release and the features, it's basically, to get people from enterprises who don't want to use that public ChatGPT interface, it's to solve their problems.
Great. Thanks, Holden.
Thanks, Holden.
Alden, that's my understanding as well, except I would say it's Bing Chat versus Enterprise Bing Chat. It's the, Bing Chat is the open system that anything can be used that's put into it, and Enterprise Bing Chat is not. And I've been using it for the last week with a client that wouldn't allow Bing Chat before. So
Correct.
it's a welcome addition. But I don't think there's any difference in performance. I haven't noticed.
Yeah, as far as what it does, it's the same as the public ChatGPT, but just your data is not used for training.
Cool. Thank you, Alden.
And there's a $5 per person per. There's a licensing of $5.
Not for everybody. If you have a certain tier within your organization of licensing of Microsoft suite of products, it comes included. And I don't know what that is, but I know that the organization that I'm helping didn't have to pay extra for it.
Mentis, and I just had one other question on that side. Is it configurable, the settings in terms of things such as temperature or top P in terms of what comes into it? Is it just what's the configurability of what with GPT you have
Control.
You have those settings. Do you know what those settings are, or if they're configurable?
The settings will remain the same, if I may. Yeah, the settings will remain the same. It's just your own enterprise API.
No, but you do. So they're not just the default settings are configurable, or it's the API. So it's a chat interface. It's not the API, correct?
Correct.
ChatGPT mentioned that even the API will be available in ChatGPT for enterprise. So Bank of America can have their API, ChatGPT API, set their own temperatures, keep the data private, all of that stuff.
Okay, thanks.
So it sounds like the models that these are based on are all they're all GPT 3.5 or GPT-4, but they're not using any other ones, right? They're not using Llama or
No.
So and that seems like ultimately that'll be end up being a restriction, right? Because they're more or less locked into OpenAI.
Yeah, this is more a security thing. It's a compliance and security thing that is happening here.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, can we hover and raise a question? Because I believe at least Azure has already announced support for Llama open source 2, right?
Yeah, Paul, on the developer side, Microsoft is supporting a whole bunch of models. You know, perhaps on the user side, they're just supporting ChatGPT, but on the developer side, you have access to Llama and a whole bunch of open source models at this point.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Hugging Face came out with a enterprise product, right?
The Hugging Face models are available in the Microsoft development environment, and my assumption was, but I'm not sure, Ray, that you could actually load them into your personal development environment.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my understanding. I didn't completely vet that, but that was my understanding is you're provisioning those models into your environment.
Okay, all right, thank you.
So, Ray, this is Bob Macklin. If I could just add some comments to your questions there. So Azure and Amazon AWS will host multiple LLMs one at a time. So as a customer, what you gain is the security of the infrastructure environment, allowing you to run either native Microsoft GPT-4 equivalent, or if you wanted to run Llama 2 or other models. If you go to Amazon, for example, you can see that they support 3 or 4 different ones. Prior to that, you asked a different question, which was how do you access 2 models simultaneously, as a user? And actually, Adam has done a prior presentation of this, whether he knows it or recalls it or not, using a orchestration layer software called LangChain. So not to get this too confused, but you can imagine a user app talks to this orchestration layer, and the app will determine where the request goes. So it could go to Llama 2, it could go to Microsoft, it could go to OpenAI, Google, and so forth. So people are actually building that real time. The more common application, and I'll terminate my comments there, is the use of vector databases. So you'll go to, for enterprise use cases, the enterprise might have a very, very large set of documents that they want to access, and then use the large language model to put it in plain English or plain native language. So you get the kind of the best of both worlds. And that's one of the primary uses of this orchestration layer. And I might suggest you go see Adam's presentation. I think it was May 22nd, by the way, that Paul hosts on his website. I think you might find that useful.
Great discussion already, Adam. We're not going to let you finish your presentation.
Thank you,
No,
guys.
I'm good. I'm sitting here on autopilot, right? It's good. And Bob, I'm blown away that you think you remember exactly what date that was too. That's amazing.
So Adam, that was a back-to-back duo of you and Lucinda. It was one of our, in my opinion, one of our best meetings. So I've actually watched it a couple times. So that's why I remember.
Now, I want to focus a little more on Ray. I thought one of your questions, maybe I misunderstood it, was today when you go to ChatGPT, you can use 3.5 or 4. And depending on if you want speed or comprehensive, at least for me, were you asking the same thing when you use enterprise or public?
Well, I was curious. I know that, OpenAI was out there publicly first, but I recognize that there's numerous models out there, and at the enterprise level, I just assumed they were using 3.5 and 4, but I was wondering if they had access to other models, and I'm familiar with LangChain and the idea of having that layer where you can, depending on context, determine which model you want to use. But it seems that for enterprise level, the key thing is security. And if Amazon and Google and Microsoft are rolling out these products, that they would want as much control as possible, because they're beholden to the enterprises that they're partnering with. So I was just curious about that, because the different models, the results in terms of how clean they are and what guardrails they have and whatnot are different. And so that's why I was curious as to what they were using.
as a differentiator between that and LangChain, but it's another orchestration layer. However, it provides single sign-on and Microsoft level security. And it also provides pretty good context. You can load in some context ahead of time. And then as you're operating against the model, you use that. So you can find that on LinkedIn quite a bit. John Medea's several videos.
I'm not sure who's talking. It's really hard to hear your connection. Thank you, John.
Sorry. You need me to repeat it?
I think we got, does any questions for Michael? I think I was even. Great. Thank you, Michael. Adam, we'll give you the microphone back.
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry.
No, that's all right. All right. Moving on then. It's really weird because I can't see the conversation. I can't see all of your faces on the screen. I just see my presentation because it's full screen, so I don't know what's happening. I expect most of you have read this slide by now. So moving on. So Bing Chat, you can think of more like the traditional ChatGPT. It's the conversational chat bot. Microsoft 365 Copilot, and we'll speak a little later about this as opposed to the Copilot that Microsoft has had in GitHub for developers for quite a while now. But Microsoft 365 Copilot is really about integrating these large language model capabilities into not all of, but a lot of the knowledge available within your company. So whether it's in an Excel spreadsheet, a PowerPoint, a Word document, as it says in that first bullet there, what it is, it's so it operates on business data within the Microsoft Graph. And the Microsoft Graph is really that bucket of data that you can include all of these different sources into, and then really tap into all of it at once, both in terms of read and write, which gets pretty exciting. So whether it's email drafting, summarizing documents, or advanced data analytics, this is going to bring all of that together. So imagine you're on a Teams call, and at the end of the call, you say, hey, write up a Word document for everyone that was on the call that summarizes the minutes of the meeting, and make a PowerPoint presentation for our management about the outcomes and next steps. And so to really be able to bring all of those tools together and start integrating those capabilities is pretty exciting. In terms of yeah.
So let me ask a question. So this feels like for $30 a month, I as an enterprise can give a whole set of integrated individual employee productivity tools. I mean, all my employees could just go to chat or go to enterprise and cut and paste forever. This feels like for an extra value, I get the full integration to the Office suite for employee productivity. Is that your sense?
Yes. Absolutely. I guess part of the trick is at $30 per user per month. I mean, in my day job, I spend most of my time looking at consumption data for Microsoft. And if someone has 1,000 licenses of something, they may only be using 150 of those. And I'm pretty sure you'll be paying for all 1,000 users. So there's certainly a financial risk of giving everyone that capability if they're not enabled or using it.
Well, I'm actually wondering who would use this beside maybe a coder, and how is this different than GitHub Copilot?
Well, but for $30 a month, everyone can have a personal assistant that takes notes in all of their meetings, notes all the action items, says who spoke about whom. You can say, hey, I missed that meeting. Go give me a summary of every time I was mentioned in that meeting. Like this is above and beyond just everyone gets their own chat.
And so, Paul,
go ahead. Sorry.
No worries. Paul, my understanding, I had looked at Copilot 365 a few months ago on behalf of some Microsoft folks, Microsoft user folks, is that it's the AI in each of the standalone apps. So there's a Microsoft 365, and each one of them is getting added the AI assistant. So it's not just for, it's PowerPoint, it's Excel, it's Word and so forth. Each of them are going to have their own AI assistants. So that's what's included in this enterprise collection. It's not just the 365 suite, but AI inside each.
But if I have 100 employees, I have to decide I'm going to spend $30 per employee to get these extra AI features turned on for each one of their Microsoft things. Is that?
I believe it's collective. I don't know. I'm not speaking as a knowledge on the pricing.
Each one of their Microsoft things, Paul?
Well, each one of my employees has Word, Excel, PowerPoint, BI.
Right.
And I'm assuming for $30 a month, each of my 500 employees can now get these productivity enhancements that they couldn't get with just going to plain big Jing. It still probably stays in with my security infrastructure, and I'm sending a bigger check to Microsoft.
Yep.
And I'm probably also telling my employees, listen here, if you want the AI juice, you got to pay for it, but you're going to stay within our security infrastructure. I don't want you ever hearing you going back out and using Claude or Poe or OpenAI, because we don't have access to those log files. And our standard internally, I'm just getting the value prop. Our standard internally is the Microsoft World. Now, Microsoft World consists of Bing Chat, kind of free level. And if you're manager or your IT, then you can have. I mean, Bank of America. I mean, 50,000 employees. So they're going to have $30 for each of those employees.
But Paul, you might only enable it for employees that actually need it, right? Like at SAP, where I'm at, it's you just enable the product as needed, right? And then there's audit that's done to see who has it on or off. If you're not using it a while, they'll automatically turn it off, etc. So you might not need it for all. One question I have is architecture. So does Copilot and Enterprise, do they have a separate public cloud area that the data runs on that only those companies have access to? It's still a public cloud, correct? But it's not the overall public cloud that everybody's going on and using, right? Because you have all the log data and all that stuff from the chat, and that's private data. So I assume that's has some barriers around it, correct?
My understanding is you're still relying on Microsoft for cloud security, but it will be within your Azure tenant.
Mhm.
Good. So
it isn't just public cloud data. Yeah, it's private cloud data.
Yeah, it's the equivalent of AWS's VPC, Virtual Private Cloud.
Okay. Good. Thank you.
And Paul, kind of how I imagine it is like, if you're familiar with Power BI,
yeah.
If someone needs a license, they'll go to use the capability, and it'll give them a message saying, "Ask your IT for a license," kind of thing, and then they can allocate it.
I was just about to say that's I think that's a great analogy. I mean, and also it's a proven uplift pricing model. So this is just a.
But even your example, Paul, imagine 100 users at $30 a month. So it's costing you $3,000 a month to give 100 people a virtual assistant.
Well, I understand.
The value prop just seems very clear to me. Yeah.
I just know corporate budgets. Someone's got to pay for that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, but Paul, 50,000 employees, $30 a month, it's nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Bank of America, that's like for increased productivity.
Yeah.
It is like peanuts, drop in the ocean.
Yeah, that's the thing that's got to be proven out, though, right? I mean, the assumption is you have an increase in productivity, for the users of the product. I think at that level, they wouldn't expect all of the employees, but for coders, yes, maybe for product managers, perhaps, or project managers.
Marketers, anybody in the marketing organization, it is like a 90% improvement in productivity.
How do you measure? I mean, how would you measure that, though? Do these products provide measurement of that productivity, or do you have to utilize something else?
Yeah, public case studies for now.
I mean, one way to measure that, Ray, is just willingness to pay. So if you marketing people, if you aren't willing to pay $20 for GPT-4, $30 for this, then don't pay for it.
Yeah.
I think they're going to demand it in droves.
Yeah, it's like I pay $20 a month for each and every one of my employees for ChatGPT without Like I'll fight tooth and nail for other things, but if ChatGPT increases the price from 20 to 100, I will still pay it without thinking for a second.
And are you seeing results? Are you seeing that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Without a shadow of a doubt. In coding, 90%, in marketing, like 60, 70%, in product management, in my own productivity, like $20 is like, you know, I'll probably give up Netflix before I give up my ChatGPT Plus subscription.
So
I mean,
Ray, another way you could benchmark this is, you know, when you're creating documents in Word, it will tell you how long you've been working on that document. So you could baseline all your prior, say, you know, marketing communication plans or something like that, and see how much time is recorded in those documents. And then after a month of using this, you could benchmark the time spent on the new documents.
I don't know. Okay, so I might be the negative Nelly, but I don't see completely the value prop, just because I'm sure like a lot of people here, you've done your own testing and just comparing GPT responses in chat versus Bing's responses in chat versus, you know, across, it's not one for one, right? In terms of what you're doing and what the, you know, I'm concerned in that dimension. I'm also concerned in just the general walled garden approach of just the differences of the worlds, the different, just how many different enterprise software how many different companies embrace Office 365 suite versus Google suite, right? And just going down this path of GPT versus just you know, the Google's path of the world. It's like people are declaring paths before the standards haven't even been established, or where people like we're fundamentally, even users haven't even really understand like the true value of prompting yet. It just seems, I don't know, for me it seems premature, and just the differences between the models, but I'm probably
I think
it's going to
it
be an
is.
interesting few years, because I think, to Alden's point, small companies are going to gain a lot of benefit in a hurry because they don't have leverage. They don't have bureaucracy to deal with. And so anything that enables them to do more with the same staff is immediately incredibly valuable. So if you go back all the way to even spreadsheets, small companies were the first ones to use them because they could just start using them right away. And you could argue that spreadsheets have not improved productivity one scraping bit, but they have changed the way businesses run and organize. And I don't think anybody would give them up. And I think that's what usually happens. We think about it initially as a cost saver, and we end up thinking about it as an opportunity maker and a different way of thinking about things and managing systems. We'll see if this turns out that way. And I think what that means is, for the enterprise, this is Paul's reaction, it's much less clear. You know, you're tagging on $30 a head. I suspect they'll discount and things like that, but still, it's a lot of money. And the question is, where will you really see that benefit? And I think the most likelihood is you'll see the benefit in doing things that you didn't used to do in different ways, not in, oh, I saved X amount. There'll be some of that, and that'll be the initial push. But the bigger push in the long run, as with spreadsheets and other tools, will be, I just do things that I couldn't do before. Lots and lots of things that I couldn't do before.
I think probably most of us do, but the thing is also, and a lot of people here probably also try to build out basic apps using the APIs. And the thing that surprised me actually is that is the immaturity of certain things within, just like anybody that's run their own red teaming exercises, right? And going ahead just to try to test things with different prompts or multi-level prompts on that side. It's just, it can open up yourself to a lot of like potential lawsuits or things on that side. So yes, sorry, Metis, you got your hand up. I don't mean to be hijacking the conversation, so I'll mute myself.
Thanks, Lewis. Yeah, Adam, keep driving here, please.
Yeah, thanks. I'm just aware of time, Paul. We got less than 15 minutes left in the lab here, so I want to make sure to get through this content at least. I'm loving the discussion, though. I wish we just had more time, because this is really what the Learning Lab's all about. Isn't my presenting this data, but it's all of the thought leadership we collectively share as we begin to explore it. The one thing I will add about 365 Copilot is I think you're right. It's too early. Worldwide now, they're in the early access program. There are 600 companies in the world that have been accepted into this. So the very first enterprise customers are just now starting to crack open what even is this thing? How do we implement it? How do we get the value out of it? What are the use cases? How does it even work? So I think that'll really prove itself out over the next quarter here and into the end of the year and into early next year. So then we move on to ChatGPT for Enterprise. And in some ways, I feel like these are sort of like small, medium, and large in terms of the scale of the implementation. So ChatGPT for Enterprise being really where you go to the most extreme in terms of actually bringing this into your own infrastructure. There was already some compliance with ISO through the OpenAI products that Microsoft offered, but now we get the enterprise grade security, the unlimited GPT-4 access, and this is the scenario I was describing where it will be within your walled garden in the Azure tenant. So it's really bringing that capability of the ChatGPT API internally, so then you can tailor it to make customizable solutions. And as far as I can tell, everything just says contact sales for pricing so far. They haven't disclosed anything about the costs on this.
Adam, I believe, based on what I've done, the pricing for ChatGPT for Enterprise, if this is, you're referring to the developer version of the solution, correct? Or not?
I'm referring to ChatGPT for Enterprise. That's the name of the product. When you say the developer version, I'm not sure what you mean.
I won't comment then. There, I may be referring to something else that's offered.
It just came out like 2 weeks ago or something. Is that what you're talking about?
I'm talking about what you can access through the Azure cloud development environment, because that is priced.
Oh well,
Yeah.
I mean, because you've already had access through the API and like the Azure OpenAI Studio to these models previously. So
Okay.
it's above and beyond that.
Yep.
Yes, two separate things completely. One is the
Yes.
public API and one is the private enterprise API. When you sign up for ChatGPT for Enterprise or Bing for Enterprise, you get your own Bank of America API for ChatGPT. Completely private, no training, no eyes on your data, all of that stuff.
That's right, Alvin. Thank you. So a few further considerations. There was questions about Llama 2. So Llama 2 is a partnership between Microsoft and Meta. So it is a completely different product than ChatGPT, which is that Microsoft is really partnering with OpenAI on. And it is actually available in both Azure, the Microsoft Cloud, as well as it can be run on Windows within the Linux system there. Microsoft and OpenAI ChatGPT are not the same. Microsoft's version is developed in collaboration with OpenAI, but it is not solely developed by OpenAI. So it is Microsoft's spin on the model. And
Adam,
go ahead, Paul.
My understanding, and see if you can confirm this. I mean, it's literally a different instance. Is that your understanding?
Yeah, it's a different model.
Yeah.
It wasn't developed by OpenAI alone. Microsoft has tuned it, trained it, and really shaped it towards their needs and their purpose.
So
At least that's my
Adam, just
understanding. Yeah, go Bob.
another version of the understanding. They were identical once the original OpenAI GPT-4 was trained. From there, they basically went their separate ways. So updated fine-tuning and RLHF is all done independently by each organization. And that kind of leads to this slide here, this further considerations just for 20 seconds worth of addition. The reason that people would choose Llama 2 over Microsoft GPT-4 for enterprise is that you can fine tune with your own data directly into Llama 2. So that becomes your own model where you don't do any fine tuning or RLHF on top of the enterprise version. That's the standard version. It's a longer discussion on the trade-offs of which way to go, but that's the key reason I believe that Microsoft is offering Llama 2 for enterprise customers.
Thanks, Bob.
So
That's
much
a great
smaller
insight.
and more efficient, right? So it's
there's several important trade-offs, but I think it's a longer discussion. I don't want to take away from.
But it's at a high level, though, Bob. You make a really good call out, which is for people to understand that GPT-4 and ChatGPT are not the same thing.
Correct.
Right. GPT-4 is the original underneath model that these are leveraging.
They were the same at March.
ChatGPT is a product that's built on top of it.
They were exactly the same on March 20th, 2023. They've diverged because of what I described. At least that's my understanding.
Keep going.
In terms of data sovereignty, as it says, so none of these solutions offer a confirmed on-premise data storage solution. It is still in Microsoft's cloud, but it uses secure cloud, and you can specify where in Microsoft's cloud you want to store your data. So for things like GDPR in Europe and CCPA in the United States, you can maintain compliance by at least assuring that it's staying within your region. There is a bonus addition to further considerations. I'll get through this quickly because we're short on time, but it's a bit of a story. So I got this email from Paul last night. He was kind enough to pass along a lot of the additional questions that come up. And I just went straight ahead and fed these into ChatGPT. I'll just call out, as I said in my prompt there, I want it to act like an expert in relevant fields. Consolidate the views of these experts into deeply informed response, and then leverage the web request plugin, which is one of the ChatGPT plugins that can crawl the internet and do further searching to dig deep into the understanding. And then I just gave it all of Paul's questions. As you can see, using web request, it actually went out to the internet and started querying these things. Then it came back and said, okay, to answer the question about Copilot versus GitHub Copilot, I need expertise in software development, corporate strategy, and AI and machine learning. For ChatGPT being the same as OpenAI or not, I need an NLP expert, a cloud compute expert, and an AI ethics and compliance expert, etc. And then it actually came back with the consolidated expert views. I won't get into all of them right now, but at the end of my slide deck, if you want to know about Copilot versus GitHub, the different versions of ChatGPT, the single incidents, the difference in the enterprise versions, the competition, all of those questions that Paul asked before, I've squeezed those in at the end. Just a quick plug, the QR code there will take you to my profile. Both September 8th, this is Australia time, so it'll be the 7th in the US, as well as the 18th. There are 2 more opportunities to catch me on live streams like this one. And that's really it for now.
Well, that's fantastic, Adam. And I do want to highlight the next Thursday, US time, is on Code Interpreter.
This Thursday, right?
This Thursday, goodness. Yes,
Yeah.
I'm still in my holiday mode here. Wonderful, Adam.
But that'll be on the advanced data analysis, as they call it now. Code Interpreter is quite the misnomer because it's not just for coding, not nearly.
One thing I'm taking away from this is I'm going to track down a Microsoft person to show up on this thing here, because we've got a lot of really good questions. And, this is a early adopter group that's quite experienced, and there's a ton of confusion here. So I can't imagine they're not confused in their sales cycles. We've got 3 minutes to go. Anybody want to share any unbelievable experiences in our open mic? Oh, go ahead, Mitch.
Thanks, mate. Welcome, guys. Mitch, just south of Sydney. Adam, great presentation, mate. I'm just curious as to some of the output of these different models and from experiences, things like hallucinations and things like that we experience with ChatGPT, whether you've had the opportunity to go and test both and ask for, like, put the same inputs into them through the different MS models and what you've seen in terms of output and capability.
I haven't actually done a compare and contrast. So no, it's the answer. I haven't. Certainly, I'd open it up if anyone else has. I mean, generally, I know that the output from Bing is a little different from ChatGPT, and to, I think it was Alden's point before, when you start getting into the version of ChatGPT for enterprise, it's going to be RLAF or fine-tuned specifically for your instance. So you'd probably see some variance at that point.
Yeah, and also if hallucination is an issue, you shouldn't be using the public version of any of these tools. You have to control hallucinations using a different method. So
thank you.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, last week I attended the ELC annual in San Francisco. It's an engineering leadership conference. 40% of all the sessions were about AI, and a quarter of the breakout roundtables were about AI. Engineering managers, directors, VPs. Interesting theme that sort of percolates through the entire thing is what I call boardroom FOMO, fear of missing out. So the question that's coming down to a lot of VPs and directors is, so what is your department doing with AI for us to stay competitive? And this is across the entire enterprise. So it's not just developers, it's customer service, customer experience, HR. And it raises the question as a technical leader, where do I use AI to improve the product or to improve productivity? And the consensus is both. But then going back to Ray's point, how do we measure that? So, going into the next year, and that's why, these conferences and these meetups are super important, super valuable.
Well, let's leave it on that wonderful note, Mike. So thank you, Mike, and everybody for your contributions. Let's keep the learning going here. Adam, thank you for all that extra research and time into it. Join him this Thursday if you're interested in more of his wisdom around these tools. It's really impressive. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night and a good day in Australia.